Good evening. Welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. The final episode of The God Part of the Brain starts now.
Well, you're not talking politics, though. You were talking about genetics and religiosity. I'm saying I've got some native in me. Like, that's not Quaker blood that makes me religious. Like, because you're trying to simplify the point. These are statistical mechanics. You can't apply them to any one individual. When you do scientific studies that involve statistical mechanics, you're talking about like 83% of a population. Now, you could have one person say, that's absurd. I don't like vanilla, and yet this study says 83% of I don't like vanilla, neither do my friends, so this study's dumb. You can't point, in statistical mechanics, you can't point to your experience, your friend's experience, Joey's experience up the block. These are...
But you know, that's what you said about... That's what you said about the prayer study.
Got what?
You just threw it out.
Yes, sure. Look, there are people making claims every day. People wander up the streets. I spoke to God. Do you concede to every one of those claims? No, he may or may not have. He probably can't produce proof of it. As long as he's being harmless enough, he's okay to have his belief there. Hey, I'm not saying he cannot believe. You want to believe that UFOs live in your home? Go for it. I don't care what people believe. I don't care at all. All I'm doing is laying out a hypothesis for a theory that suggests that human beings are genetically hardwired to perceive a spiritual reality, and that's where all of our belief systems come from. And it's an evolutionary adaptation that makes us a more survivable animal in a world in which we know the terror of death. That's all I'm saying. I didn't say it's bad. You believe whatever you want. If it makes you happy, again, believe in the great big bird. Believe in sea monkeys, Ronald McDonald. I don't care. If it makes you happy, if it floats your boat, awesome. I would never condemn anyone. I would only condemn people if they try to push their views into my legislation. So if somebody comes out there and says, well, we represent the majority, so you have to believe in the great big bird too, and you have to do rituals that suggest you believe, and you have to wear the color red, because that's the color of our belief system, that's where I'll stand. I think from our side, though, that we're worried that your side may try and do that. By what? By saying that, like, you shouldn't pray at school? Well, no, by saying that everything comes down to statistics, and then we should all run our lives based on what some guy's seen under a microscope and says that your brain produces this, and therefore we should all do this. I think that you should allow people to have their ways a bit, as long as you don't. I just said I do. I just don't believe you can legislate in I agree with you. In a multifaceted community like America's supposed to be. The majority shouldn't rule. So if 10 out of 15 people believe in the great big bird, in our particular nation, they should not be able to force the other 5 to, when they go to school, to pray to Big Bird, or to have Big Bird in every storefront, because it would be an insult to the Big Bird if we didn't have it there. That's all I'm saying. Don't believe in Big Bird when you go to your church. Pray to Big Bird when you're at home. Decorate the walls with Big Bird. No, well, I think we should all pray to the pharmaceutical companies, right? I don't remember advocating that. No, I think you would. Right. Personally, I don't think you are. I don't think you have to farm myself.
Okay. That was a good one. I enjoyed that. All right, let's go here. Dark Matter, you're on the air with Matthew Alper.
Thank you very much, Art Roswell's.
Thank you.
I'm new to this late night stuff, and I have found this to be quite fascinating. In fact, I look forward each night to getting on Sirius Radio and listening to Dark Matters. Matt, it's a shame that people can't just listen to what you're trying to say. I don't really have any argument for you. I have found what you said to be really fascinating. I'm not buying into all of it, but I do have a question for you, and I am interested in trying to learn a little bit about this. I am a recovering alcoholic. I have had what I call a spiritual experience, and I guess my proof is that I once could not stop drinking, and now I have stopped. I have recovered from that disease, which I believe now I've so forth is a disease. How would you explain then what I bought into a higher power? How
explain then how that, and I'm
basically, how would you explain you stopped drinking? The higher power gave you the ability to stop drinking. Is that fair?
Or yes, or at least that there's an existence of a higher power.
okay.
Okay.
Well, there's a chapter 16 in my book is called Religious Conversion. And it's basically about, people who go through religious conversion, which generally happens to the majority of people between ages 15 and 21, but it can happen at any point in our life. The interesting thing is that pretty much predominantly, like 97% of people who have religious conversions are undergoing some life crisis, often related to an addiction problem, for instance. A vast majority of those people, and I'm not saying this applies to you, but again, this is all just statistics. The majority of these people have suffered some type of abuse as children, some type of poor upbringing. They were either physically abused, psychologically abused, or somehow neglected. That doesn't necessarily, like I say, apply to you, but statistically speaking, so these are people who are suffering, and at some point, that pain is going to surface in the form of some type of addiction issue or some type of unhealthy behavior. And what seems to happen is, for a number of these people who are like at rock bottom, the brain changes. They go through a phenomena that's cross-cultural. The same thing happens whether you're in Australia or Germany or Ecuador. People at this point in their life suddenly have a religious conversion. Their brains hit a switch, and they become hyper-religious. Their life revolves around religion. Their life revolves around their faith in God. And basically, it's like a backup support system that the brain offers us when we're in such crisis that basically we're on the brink of self-imposed suicide. We're about to kill ourselves, whether intentionally or not.
Okay.
So,
all right. I want to ask you a question. That does make sense. Where do you get the figure 8% here in the U.S., 30% in Europe? Where did it come from?
That statistic was from, if you go on the UN report, basically the UN has studies and statistics on religiosity and the extent of belief in every nation in the world.
That's an amazing stat. All right. Thank you very much. Hold it right there. We're at a break. And I can use it too. This is real radio, folks. Dark matter. In the nighttime, Matthew Alpert is my guest. Has your brain yet exploded? Well, you certainly have lit up the lines. They're blazing, and so we're going to get right back to it. Matthew Alpert is my guest. His book is one that you're going to want to check out. If you're not afraid to be challenged, then I would say the God part of the brain is for you. Matthew, where is your book available now?
Any Barnes & Noble. That counts for around the world. Going into Russian this week, actually. Now available to 600 million more people. Or you can go online to Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com.
You wouldn't happen to know the percentage of atheists in Russia, would you?
No, I wouldn't. But it's fairly high, particularly since they just came from a communist regime that enforced atheism as the national religion.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Back to the phone. So wherever you can manage to get the book, get it. Barnes and Noble, whatever. You're on the air with Matthew Alpert. Hello. 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 Hello.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I got a question. Was it did I hear it right when I heard that no hypothetical near-death experience would cause Matthew to believe in a higher power?
Certainly is what he said, yes.
Okay. As a fellow 8%er, I guess, I just came up with something that would actually make me believe.
Okay.
If I had a near-death experience and the great big bird showed me a machine that would fold space or whatever, do time travel, and showed me how to build it, and then I came back and I built that machine and it worked as so, I would believe in the...
Well, haven't you heard many instances of people saying, like, well, where'd you come up with that idea? In a dream? People come up with inventions in dreams. The imagination, subconscious and otherwise, is a very powerful force. So if I woke up from a dream, and I've done it several times, or my dreams kind of gave me a good idea, and I used it in my writing, or I used it in my life, or I, maybe made something up. And I hear it all the time. Inventors like, yeah, I had this crazy dream where I saw myself, blah, 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 and they said I decided to try and see if I could actually make it, and that's where their technology came from, or their scientific discovery. So, again, for me, that wouldn't cut it.
All right, well, thank you. I was just thinking, like a beam me up kind of thing.
Okay, good try.
It was a good try.
Tried a new angle to wiggle in there, but...
It was a good try. And, Matthew, really, you are so closed-minded that some of the examples you've been given really would turn anybody's head. And change anybody's mind.
Okay, listen, you say I'm closed-minded, but anyone who's religious is an atheist for a million other religions. So, like, if you're a sworn Christian, and you might say, look at that guy, at least he's not closed-minded, he believes. But when it comes to all the other religions, he's as hard-lined as I am. But you wouldn't criticize him for that just because he believes in his one thing.
I might. I'm more open-minded than you think. You're on the air with Matthew Alper. Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Extinguish your radio, please.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hi, Art. Roswell's Art. Hello, Matthew.
Thank you.
Hello? Why do atheists attack Christians more than any other religion? And this is a personal question for Matthew. And please ask yourself seriously, are you more offended by Christian symbols than you are any other symbol of religion? Not in the least. I believe that, well, first of all, you're projecting because you're talking about in America, or at least in the West. Now, why would that be true? Because Christianity dominates in the West. So if there's a group that doesn't believe in a popular religion, in our space, it's going to be Christianity. So their instinct is going to be to attack the religion that's popular for the day, the one that's trying to enforce their views and their legislation. So, yes, American atheists, for instance, are more, or Western atheists in general, the Europeans as well, are most critical of Christianity. If you go to China, they couldn't care less about Christianity. If they're protesting because they want to have their beliefs, they're protesting against the Chinese Communist government. If you tell them about, well, what do you think about Christianity? They'll be like, I don't care. So it's really...
I've got one for you.
Mm-hmm.
You spent some time in the Philippines, right?
Yes, very Catholic.
Never in my life have I seen a group of people, Matthew, who are, and they're very, as you know, very Catholic. Mm-hmm. I think the country's like, I don't know, 90% Catholic, something tremendous like that. But they are dirt poor. These folks are dirt poor. And what I'm talking about now is happiness. I'm telling you, brother, I've seen these people in such poor situations, hungry, not able to get a full belly every day by a long shot, flooded out, wading through water, but happy as can be. And they attribute it to, what do you think?
I'm going to guess God. Look, well, that's why we evolved this function, because it comforts us, because life is painful, and life is full of misery and suffering and pain.
But surely, when you were there, you observed this phenomenon.
Well, I observed the same as I would in, like, a South American country, that people are very Catholic and bound to, the Catholic paradigm. Because, sure, when they were conquered by the Spanish, it was enforced upon them. And they went from believing in primitive...
Yeah, but Matthew, I'm talking about truly happy people here. Truly happy.
Right, but then you'd have to make the argument that basically religiosity equals happiness, and the more religious...
Well, I am making that argument to some degree. I mean, look at us. Yes, we're a very rich country, but are we a happy country? Are we as happy as, for example, what you observed in the Philippines? I think not.
Yeah, but if you look at the list of happiest countries, for instance, a lot of them are Scandinavian, for instance. They have the highest rate of atheism on the planet. Go look it up. Highest rate of atheism is in Scandinavia. and northern Europe.
You're right. Those are some of the happiest countries in the world. It's a good point. All right, you're on the air with Matthew Alper. Hello. Hello? Yes. Hello.
I can't tell if am I on the air?
You're on the air.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I do have a question for Matthew, but first off, I just wanted to quote something out of the Bible, which I have been studying for about 36 years, but because I had one of those experiences he's talking about.
All right, tell us about that, please. But please don't quote from the Bible, but please go ahead and tell us about your experience.
Well, his argument is basically against the Bible, so I'm wondering why.
Well, it's against every Bible. It's not just the Christian Bible.
Right.
It's against
the
Bible of every culture.
Well, okay. No, there is only one Bible, the Holy Bible.
Right. As you see it, but you know what? Listen, excuse me, miss. In all due respect, if you were born, let's say in, I don't know, Iraq.
I know, Iraq or something, and I was Muslim or something, I would be brainwashed by the Quran. But let me tell you something.
One at a time here. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, let me just read something to him. This is not from the Bible, okay?
Okay.
This is just off the back of a CD that I happened to, a DVD that I ordered from a man that was an atheist. His name was Dr. Hugh Ross, and he received his PhD in astronomy from the University of Toronto, and did his postdoctoral research at Caltech on quasars. On this particular DVD that I've got, he presents his scientific evidence for skeptics, he says, putting creation to the test. In other words, he says that, he has unshakable confidence that God's revelation of himself in Scripture and in nature do not, will not, and cannot contradict, has become his hallmark, his unique message. It says he scouts the frontiers of origins research to share with scientists and non-scientists alike the thrilling news of what's being discovered and how it connects with biblical
Okay, what do you want me to do with this?
Now, what I'm saying now is this man is just as educated as I'm sure as Matthew, and probably maybe even a little bit more so, since he is actually an astronomer and an astrophysicist.
Okay.
He says that the reason that...
Listen, there are Nobel Prize winners who believe in God. That's not proof of... Is that your proof of God, that you point to a God?
No. My proof of God...
Proof of God?
No, my proof of God is that, believe me, because I'm 66 years old, almost 67, okay? I don't know how old you are, but I pray that you still have time.
I'm 142 years old.
Well, you may be, but I tell you what, you will never, ever find true happiness, and you will never,
now you're making a good point.
Find wisdom. You will never, ever find wisdom unless, listen to me a minute, unless you open up the Holy Bible of God himself, Jehovah God.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You've inspired me, and I'm now reading the works of Homer, and I've turned to a new religion. Unfortunately, it's not the New Testament.
All right, she said you'll never find true happiness.
Right. So, will anyone?
And we were just on the subject of happiness. So, it's a pretty good question, actually, in a lot of ways. Do you think that you have found as much happiness as you can here on Earth, Matthew?
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt if someone waved the magic wand and put $100 million in my bank account, for instance. Now, can I control that? No, but to the best of my ability, I have worked fairly hard on trying to make for a happy existence, because I do believe that this is my only shot at it. So I might work extra hard at trying to seek out happiness, whatever that might mean to me. What it means to me might be different for you.
Well, indeed, it sounds like what it means to you is that you squeeze every buck you can out of atheism, and you're getting happier and happier.
Not at all. I don't squeeze bucks out of anything. If anything, let me tell you, you had me on in it was 1998 the first time, and this
Sounds
was
right.
and this was for about 2 or 3 years I was on semi-regularly. I was on once or twice a year.
Right.
There was no book written on this subject, and it took about 10 years to sink in. This book started spreading, and scientists started talking, and academics started talking, and people were using my book to teach in their colleges. And it took about 10 years, but 10 years after you had me on, all of a sudden the cover of Newsweek is Man the Spiritual Animal. The cover of Time Magazine, Are We Wired for God? There are now 150 books on this subject. You can go to Columbia University in New York and be a neurotheology major. So even as ironic as it might be, as much as you might protest my theory, you helped give birth to a new science.
Oh, and I meant to, buddy. I meant to.
Just letting you know that.
I think you're maybe more interesting now than you were then. I believed you were a good guest to have on then, and I believe it all the more now. So, that's why you're here, because what you've got to say carries weight. You're on the air with Matthew Alpern.
Hey, Matt. Hey, I got one question.
Okay, turn your radio off, please. Come on, everybody. When I answer the phone, you can hear the show when you're on the phone, so turn the radio down when you get through. Okay, go ahead. Caller?
He turned the phone and the radio off.
Apparently.
Next.
Yeah. Next. Hi, you're on the air with Matthew Alpern.
Yes, how you doing, Art?
I'm doing okay, sir.
That's great. I'm a truck driver. My name is Carl, and I've been a long-time listener of you forever, and my son, who's 22, has been listening to you since he was 10, and he's inspired by you to be a talk show host just like you, hopefully someday. But anyway,
Tough way to go.
yeah, I'm also a June 17th baby, just like you.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know that. And my question is for Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much I lean towards his point of view pretty much completely. And I've always searched myself through the years through all different religions just to get a good idea of the way.
Your question is?
Well, my question is, okay, I'm pretty much an atheist too, but the near-death experience.
Right.
Like you pointed out, Art, the people have seen the white light and whatnot. I'm wondering about the ones that see above the operating table, that they say they're floating above an out-of-body experience at that point, and they're looking down and they're seeing their body, and the doctor's talking, and they can repeat exactly what they said once they are off the table. Okay, I can answer. So, again, you get any number of hallucinations. However, the only experiment that I can point to is University of Virginia did a study where they set up an LED screen on a little slit over the beds in hospitals at their clinic. And for a year, they registered people having near-death experiences who reported just that, because one of the phenomena of a near-death experience is an out-of-body experience. They sometimes go hand in hand, which I also, there's been studies that show that it can be connected to a brain region in the angular cingulate, a part of the brain, and that basically it's a type of hallucination that we are capable of having. They set up an experiment where they put up an LED screen with a message aimed upward at the ceiling, and they wanted to see over the course of a year with a certain number, maybe 3% of people, inpatients who were, surgery was done on, who claimed to have near-death experiences, and as well as out-of-body experiences, if one of them would report more than just they looked down on themselves on the operating table, so the tops of the doctor's heads, etc., but who would have also been able to say, and then I read this crazy LED screen that was going that said the cow jumped over the moon. Not one person was able to recount, and they said, did you see any type of message maybe? They're like, well, what? Did you see any letters, like maybe an LED screen? And they're like, nope. So, and that's the only experiment that I can point to where people people sought to invalidate, because again, to me, one person saying they experience something isn't validation, because we all experience reality differently. So,
well, look, if you were on an operating table,
yeah,
you were under, and there was, let's say, only about a 20% chance you were going to survive the operation, would you be concentrating on the doctor saying, you know, this guy's circling the drain here, and I don't think he's going to make it? Or would you be just sort of idly reading the LED screen?
Well, if I were claiming that in actuality I transcended out of my physical body, floated to the top of the room, and can tell you in detail what I saw.
Well, what people are saying, Matthew, is that they're relating the conversations that went on, what the doctors and nurses said at a time when they would have been out like lights.
Well, again, these are reports. I'm not familiar with these reports. If anyone truly had that experience, then I would say that the conversation seeped into their subconscious. It's not like plugs were put in their ears.
The only one you know about is the LED thing, and I'm saying, look, if you're in a life and death situation, you know, what are you going to be concentrating on?
No, but
come on.
Right, but if you're having this type of experience where you're claiming you are actually floating above the table, because it seems to be an above type of experience, and people will even say, I can tell you the doctor, the back of his head, he was bald. Like I looked down from the ceiling and watched them operate on me for half of the procedure. If there's a flashing screen, just bleep, 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 bleep in your face, if you were up there for 1 second, you would notice it. And someone saying, I watched the procedure for an hour, and I can tell you conversations, and I can tell you what the back of that nurse's head looks like, but I can't tell you anything about the LED screen. I would say just like in a dream, sometimes dreams feel really real. And you can say, like, you know, so that's my interpretation.
All right. Dark Matter, you're on the air with Matthew. Hi.
Hey, Art, it's good to hear you again. I want to give you 2 Roswell and a Groom Lake just for giggles.
Thank you.
I'm not a strong believer, but I do have 3 real quick questions. One of them is directly aimed at his whole theory of the God brain, Art.
Okay.
My first one is your belief that the afterlife does your belief of the afterlife solely exist because of your lack in belief of God?
Well, you mean my lack of belief in an afterlife? Because I don't believe in an afterlife.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, is that lack of belief of an afterlife solely based on your lack of belief of God?
No.
My idea is
the answer is no. My lack of belief in an afterlife is because I don't believe not in God, but I don't believe in a soul. So I believe that consciousness, who we are, who makes up Matthew, is not contingent on some ghost in the machine, literally the machine. And that when the machine breaks down, meaning when my brain stops functioning, that consciousness will come to an end. I don't even have to die. Within my lifetime, I could suffer a brain injury, I could get Alzheimer's, and Matthew, as a conscious entity, will cease to exist, or will be a compromised version of me. So I believe that when the brain stops, consciousness stops, meaning that when I'm officially dead, there won't be some conscious version of me either burning in hell or playing a harp with the angels. So it has nothing to do necessarily with a belief in God. It's more related to my belief in relation to souls versus consciousness.
Okay.
That's a real answer there. Okay, the next one. Now this one has to go with his theory of the whole existence of the God part of the brain, which you've done a very good job of describing it, you know, all scientifically. But if your theory that the God part of the brain does exist and what it's exactly supposed to do, doesn't that then make a lack of the belief of God and mental illness?
No, would somebody who's not musically inclined be mentally ill? If somebody isn't great at math, are they mentally ill?
Well, those are learned skills, though. Those are learned skills. The God part of the brain.
No.
It is like a cat meowing.
No, Look, learning how to play the guitar is a learned skill. Having the capacity to learn the guitar is innate. Half of our talents, and pretty much this is standardized in genetic science, half of what we are is what was in our genes. The other half is what was nurtured into us. So nobody, for instance, can be taught to be a musical genius. That has to be partly innate. Just like if you took someone who's tone deaf and you spent your whole life, if Mozart and Beethoven got together and said, God damn it, we're going to teach this guy how to play the violin. If it takes the life out of us, they'll both be dead before that guy will be playing a violin, because he's innately incapable. Now, would you call him brain damage? No, he might be a mechanical genius or a brilliant writer, any number of things. Just musically, he's disinclined. So someone who is religiously disinclined isn't brain damage. They just represent one set of the standard deviation in religiosity.
I must say, I was terribly shocked to hear you use God's name in that way.
I put it
at all.
I put it in quotes. You didn't hear
I didn't see those. No,
I'm making the quote signs over here.
Hold on. Matthew Alper is my guest. His book is The God Part of the Brain. If you're curious, and you should be, you should go pick it up and take a read. I'm Art Bell. This is Dark Matter. See how calming the music is? It's like taking a break for a moment, letting your mind sort of drift off of just a little from some of this hard stuff, and it is hard. Catherine, Matthew, says the following. Art, I'm curious. If Matthew was raised with any type of religious affiliation, were his parents religious? He comes across as being a very angry atheist. This is deep-rooted hate. How do you respond to that?
Well, I was raised in a weird satanic worshiping cult where they were drinking my blood as a child.
They're all going, I knew it.
Yep.
No, seriously now. Serious question.
First of all, listen, this is the thing, I will support my theory with great conviction and not be swayed by those who have altering beliefs. Nevertheless, I have no grudge for the most part against anyone's beliefs. I mean, I do believe that religiosity has spawned a lot of very destructive and hostile and antagonistic, behaviors, which we see again in, we just turn on the news today and we see it every day. But
all right, that's responding to the deep-rooted hate part. But the question was,
yes,
how were you raised?
I was raised in a predominantly secular upbringing, meaning religion played no role. My family was Jewish, but not at all religious. So, like when I was 5, we had a menorah, and by 6, everyone agreed that was boring. And then we had a Christmas tree, and then by 8, it was like you're too old to believe in Santa Claus, so and plus you get presents every time you go to the store. So enough of this like cashing in on Christmas nonsense. And then that was the end of pretty much religion, except we would all get together for Passover dinner, and still do to this day, really just as an excuse for the whole family to get together. Basically, we celebrate Thanksgiving and Passover as the two excuses for the family to get together and eat. But everyone in my family is in mixed marriages. My one cousin's married to a Hindu. My sister's married to an Irish Catholic guy.
Okay. All right. Well, your mom and dad have had, I'm sure, ample opportunity either to hear you on my program and to read your book, right? How have they reacted?
Well, oddly enough, my parents are two of the least spiritual people I know. Like, they just couldn't care less. They're kind of materialistic. Not like they're out seeking material wealth or goods or care about name brands. They're just not spiritual. They don't pray. They don't meditate. They don't care about spiritual things. It was really never mentioned in my house. If anything, I was like the headache in the home because I was constantly asking questions. What's this? What's that? Who's God?
I bet you were.
I
bet you were. All right, you're on the air with Matthew Alper, Dark Matter. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Is this me? Rod?
It is.
No, it's someone else. Every time I hear hello, I don't know if it's me or not.
Right, I understand.
Okay. I'm not an atheist, but take Pascal's bet. I'm pretty much an agnostic, though. Catholic in his 40s and all that. Here's my question for Matthew about the life and life force, because I actually sat with my father-in-law as he passed away, and 1 minute you could tell he's not dead yet.
And if you can avoid breathing into
Sorry.
that'll help.
Okay.
And so your dad passed.
Yeah, my father-in-law, he was passing away. 1 minute, it's like we're all gathered around. The next minute, everybody's like, oh, he's not here anymore. Goodbye.
Right.
And it makes me very serious because, like I said, I'm agnostic, like the Who song. I'm a seeker, but I really don't care. But it's these little things that make me, re-question what it is.
Well, what little thing? The fact that 1 minute your father was alive and then he was not alive?
Well, it's that we could all tell. We could all tell, we're gathered around, and then it's like, well, he's not here anymore, let's go.
Well, you could tell what, though? You could tell that the life force was leaving his body?
Well,
did you have some experience?
It's not that we could see that. It was more that, because he was on morphine and whatnot, and, we're dabbing his lips with water and all that. And
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Well, so certainly you see the chest stop moving up and down, and
that happened. That happened many a time. This was over 14 days. Pancreatic cancer. And so, but we always knew, okay, he's there. And like I said, I'm agnostic. I really don't, but these things make me stop and go,
Okay, are you saying that when he actually did finally die, there was a difference that you detected? In other words, soul leaving the body, whatever.
Well, we didn't see anything, but now it's like, oh, there's a shell sitting there.
Okay, so basically you all kind of came to the realization, whoops, he's now dead.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of happens, right? We kind of figure it out.
I can take it another notch.
Okay.
I've talked to plenty of people who have said they have felt the soul of the person passing pass through them.
Right. Okay. So again, my take is, I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't care if you're a Nobel Prize winning scientist and you tell me anything. Until a valid scientific experiment is set up with a hypothesis and a control and a series of, subjects that are tested on. And
you know what, Matthew? In this PC world, you can't do that anymore. But back in the 1800s, they actually weighed people at the moment of death and detected a change in weight. I can't give you a modern example because
they can do that now. They can have someone.
I know they can do it. They don't do it, is what I'm saying. We live in a very PC world. You know that.
Yeah, people don't lose weight when there's this notion that it's the soul weighs 28 grams. That again, it's all sure. You could say 300 years ago all sorts of things happened. 300 years ago, someone stumbled out of the saloon and said he saw God, and next thing you know, he had his own cult, and people followed him to Utah or whatever happened. So these things happen. But again, I would never put faith in any individual expressing anything he tells me happened to him. If a group of scientists say, we've done this experiment, here's the experiment, here's the control, and this is what happened to him, then I'll listen.
Kind of like in the prayer experiments that were scientific.
Yeah, but I follow this.
You never saw them, right?
Exactly, and I follow this stuff, and I know what's out there, and I know what's considered scientifically valid, and generally those are the kind of things you'll only read in books by people who have titles like proof of the afterlife, et cetera, and they'll cite experiments done, but there's no real universities. You'll never find it.
Let me tell you another very, very interesting thing for you to ponder.
Okay.
I have interviewed legitimate scientists who have hypnotized people and taken them, Matthew, back and back and back and back and back until they ran into another life.
Sure. Well, there's all sorts of there are people who make claims for past life.
No, these are not just idle claims. Now, when they got to this,
between a claim and an idle claim.
Bear with me.
Okay.
bear with me, when you get to this other life, you begin asking details. Who are you? Where did you live? Who were your friends? And, detail upon detail upon detail. And they came out, they got checked out, and it was real.
Okay, what you call real, my version of real is if I see it convergently on the cover of, Time Magazine, Newsweek, the New York Times, et cetera, and they're all reporting this story about, the person whose soul was witnessed, or the ghost, or any of the near-death experience, or any of these claims, then I'll start to look into it. When it seems like a team of scientists and valid research, but as long as one person is making claims that they're calling real, I ain't buying it. And you said the same thing to me. Well, I don't see your theories on the cover of Time Magazine. And you know what? It took 10 years, and I said it would, and they were. So...
All right. You're on the air with Matthew Alper.
Hey, Megan Roswell, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Halper, I'd like to thank you for starting your views here tonight. I think you're interested. Some of it I can agree with, but I have a question. The way you described this, I have a degree in psychology. You seem to set this up like this is in our DNA, like it is a reflex.
Correct.
Okay. So what about the issue of choice? It's been my experience that in order to attain spiritual knowledge, a person has to make a choice to pursue it. Now, what happens to these people who do not do that? Do they live in conflict? Do they live sad lives? Is their lives in turmoil because they're in conflict with their DNA, as you put it?
Well, first of all, if I haven't made enough enemies tonight, let's make some more. I don't believe in free will. So you talk about choice. I don't believe we have choice. I believe we're wind-up toys in a universe where we never had a choice. Let me ask, did you have any say in who you were going to be born as?
He's not there anymore. You don't believe we have choice?
No. Listen, all of our decisions are based on two sets of things. Basically, all of our decisions are based on who we are. And who we are is based on two variables, nature, nurture. Our genetic makeup, the hardware we're born with, and nurture, the software that's programmed into us, just like a computer. And basically, how much say did you have that you were going to be born Art Bell, that you were going to be born a white male with whatever health you have, whatever conditions you have, in this century, or the last century, to the family you were born. Let's say you were born, we wave a magic wand, and now you're born a crippled black woman in 4th century BC Zambia, blind, born to abusive parents. Are you going to grow up to be Art Bell? No, you will not. You will be making whole different choices and decisions. Your whole reality will be completely different than the one it is now, based on things that you had no control over, because you had no control over your genetic makeup, and you had no control over into the environment into which you were born. Those are the variables that make you who you are, and who you are is what decides the decisions you are going to make in your life. So that's my...
Okay, so you're suggesting that those decisions as we go through life are all pre-programmed.
Well, they're not pre-programmed, they're partially pre-programmed. Again, the nurture element will then alter the pre-programming. So, for instance, you could have two identical twins.
Well, that would be called choice. In other words, as I grow up, Art Bell, I can make lots of different choices. I could go be a truck smuggler in Africa.
Yeah, but that ability to choose to me is another illusion. It's the illusion of self.
Really?
Yes.
All right, it's the caller's turn. You're on the air with Matthew Alper. Hello.
Hello there. I'm really glad to be on the air because what I hear Matthew saying is that if we don't have choice, and the underpinnings of his argument is that by understanding how the mind works, we can negate meaning. That the experience of human beings, if it can be explained in some scientific way and predicted and even manipulated, then there is no meaning. So if there is no meaning
in a vast void of a universe. Your life...
Otherwise, sir, have a nice day.
Yeah, have a nice day. Exactly.
Well, I think the problem with that is that the organism, the life force within human beings rejects that notion that we will not go quietly into the dark, because to really accept what you're saying, to take that in and to consider that as true and a true representation of reality, is to cease to exist. The life force would wither within us because there would be no...
I agree. Nature's smarter than I am. That's why nature wired us to be given an innate sense of purpose and meaning in an otherwise meaningless universe.
So then you are then, without meaning to be, an agent of evil, because if your theory and if your knowledge and if your logic were to take hold within humanity, you would be...
There we go. Just a second to take came off this spool for some reason. Just a few seconds, I'll get us right back there. I think this is pretty close.
That you were going to be born ourselves. That you were going to be born a white male with whatever health you have, whatever conditions you have, in this century, or the last century, to the family you were born. Let's say you were born, we wave a magic wand, and now you're born a crippled black woman in 4th century BC Zambia, blind, born to abusive parents. Are you going to grow up to be Art Bell? No, you will not. You will be making whole different choices and decisions. Your whole reality will be completely different than the one it is now, based on things that you had no control over. Because you had no control over your genetic makeup, and you had no control over into the environment into which you were born. Those are the variables that make you who you are, which decides the decisions you are going to make in your life. So that's my...
Okay, so you're suggesting that those decisions as we go through life are all pre-programmed.
Well, they're not pre-programmed. They're partially pre-programmed. Again, the nurture element will then alter the pre-programming. So, for instance, you could have 2 identical twins.
Well, that'd be called choice. In other words, as I grow up, Art Bell, I can make lots of different choices. I could go be a truck smuggler in Africa.
Yeah, but that ability to choose to me is another illusion. It's the illusion of self.
Really?
Yes.
All right, it's the caller's turn. You're on the air with Matthew Alper. Hello.
Hello there. I'm really glad to be on the air, because what I hear that Matthew saying is that if we don't have choice, and the underpinnings of his argument is that by understanding how the mind works, we can negate meaning. That the experience of human beings, if it can be explained in some scientific way and predicted and even manipulated, then there is no meaning. So there is no meaning to our existence or to existing.
That is correct. There is no meaning for existence.
Wow.
You are a meaningless being in a vast void of a universe. Your life...
Otherwise, sir, have a nice day.
Yeah, have a nice day. Exactly.
Well, I think the problem with that is that the organism, the life force within human beings rejects that notion that we will not go quietly into the dark, because to really accept what you're saying, to take that in and to consider that as true and a true representation of reality, is to cease to exist. The life force would wither within us because there would be no...
I agree. Nature's smarter than I am. That's why nature wired us to be given an innate sense of purpose and meaning in an otherwise meaningless universe.
So then you are then, without meaning to be, an agent of evil, because if your theory and if your knowledge and if your logic were to take hold within humanity, you would be the best male in our existence.
No, because see, this is the thing.
I believe religiosity will be the death knell of our existence. I believe that the tribalistic effect that comes with this instinct is what will destroy us. We will never be at peace. Eventually, one paradigm is going to unleash the weapons that will destroy the civilization as we know it. And I believe that's inevitable. So I'm hoping to somehow channel these energies to a less destructive way by informing people that they're behaving on an impulse that maybe isn't necessarily in their best interest.
In the short term, what you're saying could be true, but the problem with the horizon is that in the short term, if we're going to exist in the future, we have to overcome the very pressures that you say. We can evolve past that. There are plenty of people fighting for that to happen. But in the end result of knowledge, if knowledge is the thing that will destroy us, in 1,000 years, if we can detect every particle of the brain and create consciousness on our own, then that knowledge alone will render us nothing but sparkles in the water. We will realize that we are nothing, and there will be no need to go on.
Well, you know what? That depends. I don't believe that there's any ultimate meaning, but that doesn't mean that inhibits me from experiencing joy in life. I can still experience the joy of friendship, of love, of sex, of art, of music, of play, of any number of things.
Yes, there'll be someone just like you who will come back and explain that the chemical reaction of what we're feeling is how it happens, and we can, put a wire in our brain and masturbate ourselves in a sense mentally into those states, and so therefore there's no need to really interact with anyone or read anything. We can have that on demand.
It's called the internet. We have it, but it has yet to stop people from interacting. It might slow them down a little. They might find themselves a little more hermetic in their own apartments, living in their fantasy world through a computer screen, but it seems like we still have the need to interact, that it's not going to completely curb that instinct to be with other people. But what you're describing is the internet, and people are hooked on it like a drug. They carry around their smartphones, and they're addicted to texting, and they are basically, we're one step away from being wired into the matrix.
It is a frightening aspect, but, living without meaning, even if the personal meaning, because the other problem is that you're telling the population of the planet that they have a mental illness, that they perceive something, they desire something that's not true, and that they should just accept the meaningless of their life. And what is the result of that?
Okay, but in fact, that is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right, but he just made an important distinction because he mentioned personal meaning. What I'm talking about is ultimate meaning. Like, does my existence matter in the ultimate universe? Like 1 billion years ago from now, will I be anything other than cosmic dust? A blink in the eye of time that played no ultimate significant role in anything, and that's true of all of us, that I believe. Personal meaning, though, that's what gets us through the day. That's what still makes life, worth living.
Well, I guess that's true, but you gotta have mystery. You gotta have something to drive you forward. And right now, I have to approach science a lot like an acolyte of a religion, because I don't have an atom smasher. I don't have a telescope. I can't verify anything that scientists are telling me. I have to accept my faith that these group of men, that can be just like the group of men in the Vatican, are telling me what the nature of reality is.
That's not true. It's not just faith. Because, like, for instance, the phone that you're talking into right now was developed by those scientists. So they're creating real things.
Right, but the person who gives you faith, and I'm an agnostic, so to be honest with you, but the person who gives you faith, it gives you the ability, just as valid as this phone that I'm talking on, the ability to endure the hardships that you're talking about, the problems of life, the people in the Philippines who are happy in the midst of their squalor. That in itself is even more valuable, even more important than the electronic device that I'm speaking on. The ability to live your life and to seek pleasure and flee from pain, and if you can't change your environment to be able to, but your own environment in your head is extremely important.
Yeah, but they're making the assumption
assumption that atheists can't be happy, that people who don't believe in God are incapable of happiness. And I disagree.
Okay, well, obviously. All right. We're going to take a break here. You're listening to Dark Matter in the nighttime. I'm Marvell. I can see your line back in the My guest is Matthew Albert, and his book is The God Part of the Brain. You can get it most anywhere. All you got to do is go out and look a little bit. So if you're challenged by what you heard, I would think you'd want to read and read very, very carefully. Matthew, I've got I had no idea that the wormhole worked this well. The message says he needs to have his own NDE. Simple. Changed me forever, and I'm a wicked. My death was suicide, and yes, I went to heaven.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. Really working well. Okay, we don't have a lot of time, so you're on the air with Matthew Albert. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yes. Yes.
Nice to see you, Robert.
Thank you.
Matthew?
Yeah.
Why are you still carrying an ancient Jewish name if you're so anti-religious, no matter what the denomination may be?
Well, I didn't name myself.
Well, yeah, but you can't change it legally. Anybody can. But beyond that, when you were talking about the
Call me Ezekiel instead.
Say what? Or Big Bird. But when you're talking about the body dying and then taking evolution, that the physiology came in to slow down the heart and the brain and numb everything, how does a dying body pass on any information to the next generation? And beyond that even, you know, I guess maybe if you had a little religious in the family, you'd think a little differently about it, because you say you looked over the wall, under the wall, through the wall. I think you need to look a little closer, because the Bible, like any good book, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it all builds up to the end. And I grew up carrying the candle, carrying the crucifix, helping with the sacrament. But you know what? To me, it was just part of growing up. But what caught me, and years later, when I was reading the end in the Revelation, Christ said that this generation will not pass, the one that sees...
Is this an ad for Christianity, or do you have a question?
No. It's an ad for everybody, because it comes out of the Jewish faith, like Islam did, Christianity did, and a lot of other faith-based...
I'm an atheist.
All right, all he's asking is there a question? Hold on. Is there a question at the end of this?
Just give me
Okay.
Christ said that when Israel regained its promised land for the third time, which it did in May, as we all know, there is no other thing that's more strong than any other prophecy. When you read the Bible...
Okay, sir, your question is, I'm sorry, we're short on time.
I know. And all it is that when everybody is going to come to what they believe individually, not collectively. Each person sitting in that church comes to their belief individually. And for you to write a snake oil book and try to influence so many people to the negative outlook that you have because of your experiences, I think does more harm than good.
Okay,
that was a scintillating question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was just a statement and a bash. So you did have a question. That's unfair. Hello there. You're on the air with Matthew Albert.
Hi.
Hi. Turn you off, please.
Okay, the radio's off. This is the first time I've listened to your series, your show. My husband's listened for years. We've been driving home. And I'm very intrigued by your guest that you have there, Matthew, and I was just wondering, since I don't know much about him, what his thought was on evolution, the Big Bang Theory, what exactly he believes in as how, we got here.
How we got here, right. We kind of covered that, but okay, sure. Matthew?
I believe in the physical evolution of life. That 3.2 billion years ago, 1.2 billion years after the creation of planet Earth, that molecules formed that were able to replicate themselves,
and basically give birth, die, etc. That's it.
Okay.
Molecules at work.
Yes, my name's Jordan. I called earlier. I wanted to talk about psychic ability.
No, one call per customer, Jordan. My goodness gracious, all those people who got invite. You're on the air with Matthew Albert. Hello.
Hello, this is James. Let me turn my radio.
Oh, yes. Listen, folks, when you get on the line, you can hear the program there. You don't need the radio. Turn it off as soon as you're on hold. Go ahead.
Happy Roswell start.
Thank you.
I'm a mystic, and I have had a direct experience with the infinite. And there's a lot of truth to what Matthew is saying. I would like to suggest something to him, though, about all the fanaticism of religion. Once I had that experience, I saw the truth of that. He's really telling the truth. But about the soul,
So let me get this straight. You had a mystical experience that revealed that what Matthew's saying is the truth.
That's funny. I had the same mystical experience.
in regard to religion and the fanaticism involved in that, and I can prove it. It's easy to prove. That's what I would like to suggest to him. Is that life is about itself. Life is the infinite. Life is what people call God. Life is the infinite of a creator.
Actually, that's kind of what he's saying, I think.
Well,
I forgot what I was saying.
Well, I mean, that life is the totality of the answer. Life itself.
Well, I don't even think there's a question, so I don't even know if I believe there's an answer.
well, like I said,
Who's asking it?
right. Well, what I'm suggesting to you, and my question is, do you perceive this? That the part about the soul is just another word for what people call God, what I'm calling the infinite. What this whole conversation is about what you believe and what other people don't believe. And what I'm trying to point out to you and everyone in the program, including Art, is that life isn't about what you believe and what you don't believe. All that is based on what you think. All that is based in thought. And life is an expression of the infinite. Just like I'm using words, we're all using words in this exchange.
Okay, listen, I would essentially agree with you. The only difference probably is that I don't ascribe any mystical sentiment to the infinite. To me, the infinite is just like a quality of nature, that it's timeless. But I don't believe that has any mystical property.
You put words in my mouth. I didn't say anything about the infinite being mystical. I said I am a mystic. And I was just using a word to say that I'm not in a particular religion. That's all I was saying. In regard to what people call God, I was describing that not as anything mystical.
So what's your mysticism? I'm just curious. You're a mystic. What's your mysticism?
I'm just pointing out that I'm not of any particular religion. That's all.
That's okay. But what is your mysticism? Do you fly? Do you have psychic abilities?
No. This is what it is, and I've already said it. Is to share with people like you are sharing with people. You want the world to be at peace. This is your approach. And what I'm sharing with you and everyone is that once you realize the truth is life itself. All of us are expressions of the one infinite life in the same sense. I'm giving you an example.
All right, listen, caller, I'm sorry, we're way out of time. I think he was saying that, the whole thing is, the whole point of life is, I don't know, the point of life is life. It's been a pleasure having you on the program again, Matthew. It really has. It's been a whale of a radio show, and I think that's the whole point. So
it's been a true roller coaster ride. Thank you for having me on again. Again, the name of the book is The God Part of the Brain. You can go to www.godpart.com if you want to read about it, or just look up my name. I'm all over the place, and hope you all enjoyed.
Take care, my friend. We'll do it again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Art.
Good night. That should have caused a bit of thought. Well, listen, everybody, we are out of time. Thank you very much. Good radio is good radio, but time's up. Later.
I've been looking
And that was Art Bell, Back in Time. God part of the brain from Sirius XM back in 2013. With that, that'll bring us to a close as well for this evening as soon as this fight concludes. As always, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Help us get to that goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers. So Boxy sends those nice red boxes over. We can send to all of you, and Google puts us on the algorithms. Coinbase, Ibotta, and Game.gg, so we can go ahead and, of course, get you $10 free when you sign up for those services, and, of course, more when you use them. And until next time, like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another. And always, always, always release the Krakens in your life as we march along this overnight and every overnight here from day one. Have a great night's sleep, everybody. We will see you bright and early in the afternoon tomorrow for more from day one. Have a great overnight and enjoy your good night's rest, everybody. And enjoy your good night's rest, everybody. Good night.